waterfalls and streams like this, important habitats and sources of water for plants and animals, they're important for people too. And I don't just mean for drinking. There's some very creative ways that the power of water can be harnessed and used. And up next, we're going to take a look at one way that water has been turned into a power source. The valleys and coves in this area provided great locations and environments for people to live. They had easy access to fresh water, land to grow food, habitats to go hunting in, and spaces to build homes for their families. This is the historic Mingus Mill, built in 1886. It was the largest and one of the most advanced mills in the Smokies because of its steel turbine design. The mill served over 200 families in the surrounding area who would bring their corn and wheat harvest regularly to be ground into flour. This mill wasn't just a mill, it was a destination and a crossroads for nearby communities. On Saturdays, families from the surrounding areas would bring their grain to be ground, often walking more than 15 miles. With everyone gathering together, families would also sell and barter other goods. This was like going to the grocery store and hanging out with your friends all at the same time. It's how the early settlers made their living and provided for their families. It was a time to gather socially, to talk, and to share news and stories. So how does this important mill harness the power of water? To answer that, we're going to go and see for ourselves. It all begins at the water source, Mingus Creek. This continuous flowing water is what powers the mill to do its job. The mill race channels water to flow into an elevated flume that has a gate that regulates the water flow. The water is then filtered through a chunk rack to get rid of any leaves, sticks, and other large debris. A smaller box catches any sand and prevents it from going through. If sand reached the turbine in the mill, it would damage it. The flume then pours the filtered water from a height of 22 feet into what's called the penstock. This penstock keeps the water pressure at a constant 22 foot-pounds. This pressurized water runs into a metal pipe, which is attached to the turbine housing and the metal turbine. The water pushes the turbine's angled blades, which then turns a metal rod that is attached to the grinding stones. The water powered other equipment in the mill as well. The turbine generates 11 horsepower, which was a significant amount of power back then. The Mingus family was one of the first to settle here in the late 1700s. The mill was later completed in 1886 and served the surrounding communities for over 40 years. It became idle in the 1930s, but was fully restored in 1968 by the National Park Service to continue telling the story and history of this beautiful area. Today, it's open to the public and fully operational, and you can even buy ground cornmeal just like it was the late 1800s. If you visit this area and want to learn more about the history and how people lived here, check out the Mountain Farm Museum, a unique collection of farm buildings from the late 1800s with historic gardens and some farm animals that bring history to life from over 100 years ago. Mingus Mill, however, wasn't the only way that the power of water brought communities together in this area or made their lives easier. There was another way that water power was put to use, and it changed history. When the iron rails came to the Murphy branch of the Western North Carolina Railroad in 1881, it provided thousands of people with the opportunity to travel in comfort and style to new places and big cities they'd only heard of, like Asheville. This is the 1702 steam locomotive. It dates back to 1942, but has been updated and restored over the years. Steam engines work by heating water inside the boiler until it turns into steam, which creates high pressure. The steam pressure then pushes the pistons in the engine that are connected to the wheels that drive the locomotive. It's really amazing to see how the power of water was creatively harnessed and used to connect cities and communities. Today, the 1702 is one of only 2 like it in the entire country. And if you wish, you can take a ride on it and experience the mountains by railway, just like they did long ago. Springtime is one of the best times of the year to visit these mountains. It's cooler, there's lots of wildlife activity going on, and the spring blooms are gorgeous. Whether I'm traveling through these mountains in a car, on a train, or hiking down a trail, being surrounded by these incredible spring colors reminds me of the amazing classical music composition Appalachian Spring by Aaron Copland. He wrote it because he was inspired by the beauty of these mountains in the springtime. Part of the composition is called Simple Gifts, which reminds me of the importance to live simply and appreciate all the little blessings God gives us each day. 'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. Appalachian Spring has always been a favorite of mine, even when I was little. And being out here in the springtime and seeing it for myself, I can appreciate that classical piece even more now.